lavished with praise. Well, out of the way quickly there. I started my interpretive readings with Nietzsche. Of course, God was dead. And then I moved on to the Buddha, and the Buddha's not too concerned with God. And so now I'm moving on to Jesus, and we're going to talk about the Sermon on the Mount. So obviously, I kind of enjoy philosophy. It's one of the things I enjoy reading on. So when I saw there was an interpretive reading project in my book to do a famous speech, I thought Sermon on the Mount just came to mind. That was the first thing I thought of. I mean, probably the greatest speech ever given. We don't have a YouTube video we can go back and watch to see Jesus. And we don't have even a complete transcript of the speech. All we have is some excerpts of it given to us in the book of Matthew. But we can look at the Bible, and it tells us that Jesus was a great speaker. Thousands of people would follow Jesus around the Middle East to hear what he had to say. And that was before microphones or amplification. So that's a lot of people to stand around and listen to somebody speak. And then we can look at the end of the book of Matthew, where he says that people were amazed when they heard Jesus speak, that they had never heard somebody speak with such great authority. So that tells me that Jesus was a great speaker. And then, of course, the longevity of the Sermon on the Mount, that it's been around for more than 2,000 years. And it's probably been the most studied and the most reflected upon, the most passed on speech in the history of the Western world. So when I enjoy, like I say, philosophy, and I think as I've studied philosophy over the years, it's really brought Jesus' teachings more into light for me, where I appreciate them from a much broader perspective than I used to. I think a great example is the Beatitudes, the blessed are thys, that begin the Sermon on the Mount. I remember being in Sunday school, and I thought that these people were blessed because they'd had hard lives, they had suffered. Well, as I grew older, I found out that everybody suffers, so that's probably not the reason. And then I thought it was because God was sympathetic. We're talking about the Old Testament God. I don't see that as being sympathetic, but maybe Jesus was. But then I looked at the type of person that Jesus is, and he's a very proactive person. He's out there going after, he's challenging traditional thoughts and values. He even challenges the Roman Empire, the most ruthless dictatorship throughout the history, probably. So he was a very courageous guy. And then I started to look at the Beatitudes in a different respect, as Jesus is a proactive person. So let me read the Beatitudes for you. And if this sounds a little bit different, I read the New Living Translation, which is kind of just plain English. So if you're used to the King James, you might want to check this out, because it's a lot more fun, a lot more easy to read. The Beatitudes. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who are mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those who are pure of heart, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you, because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be very glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, ancient prophets were persecuted in the same way. So from a proactive perspective, as we grow spiritually, as we gain wisdom, we naturally just start to see ourselves as a small part of the bigger whole. And as we start to see ourselves as being interdependent with everything in the world and in the universe, we just naturally start to become more humble, to be more merciful, to seek peace. We actually mourn. We mourn for people who haven't developed that spirituality because they're trapped in the material world, living in an illusion. The next one I want to talk about is the teachings about anger. And it was common throughout the Sermon on the Mount for Jesus to talk about the teachings of Moses, the laws of Moses, and to expand on them. And in this teaching, he expands on the law that thou shalt not kill. And he also uses a great simile about going to court and being accountable to make his point, which Jesus often used similes in his teachings. You have heard that our ancestors were told, you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. But I can say, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. When you are on the way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Otherwise, your accuser may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to an officer, and you will be thrown into prison. Then, and if that happens, you surely won't be free again until you have paid every last penny. So here, Jesus is telling us that not only do our actions matter, but our thoughts also matter. You can't pursue a spiritual path or have spiritual growth if you're not in line with the compassions of the universe. So you can't be thinking about killing somebody and be angry and at the same time develop loving kindness that it takes to develop a spiritual nature. Then he uses the simile of going to court and being held accountable for every last penny. Here Jesus is just telling us that we reap what we sow. That in the material world or in the spiritual world, you're going to be held accountable, and you're not going to be let off the hook until you've paid back every last penny. The last one I want to talk about is the teaching about adultery. And this is about so much more than just adultery, and he uses two very strong similes to get his point across. You have heard the commandment that says, you must not commit adultery. But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So if your eye, even your good eye, causes you to lust, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your hand, even your strong hand, causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. So this is about more than just adultery. This is about all sensory desires. And sensory desires are really the gorilla in the room when it comes to our practice for spirituality. It's the thing that most hinders you from developing a spiritual nature. You get caught up in sensory pleasures and in the material world, and you just get lost. So Jesus is telling us that this is the beast, and he uses a very strong simile here. Cut off your hand, gouge out your eye, because he's telling us that this is such a beast that you have to have that same type of determination to overcome it as if you were cutting off your hand or gouging out your eye. I'm a Toastmaster.